Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and I have got a very special first look video review for you today of one of the upcoming Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figures from Playmates Toys. That's right, my friends. Shout out to my buddy Chad, who loaned this awesome figure to me so that we could get a good look at it outside of the packaging. Essentially, what we have here is a promo figure. You see, on the official Nickelodeon page on Facebook, they've been running some promotions where folks can win prizes, and among those prizes, they're getting some of these very special Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles promo figures. So these do vary a little bit from the upcoming releases. The paint deco is a little bit nicer on these, and they come in these little fancy boxes. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at this promo figure here today. So as you can see, it's in a really cool little hard box, nice and bright green on the back, has the new Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles logo on the front, and if we remove this top lid, we reveal the brand new Raphael action figure right there inside on some nice kind of black felt lined plastic tray there. Pretty cool stuff. Before I get into the figure itself, I want to do a little bit of a comparison time here. You see, way back in 2012, when Playmates was about to launch the brand new toy line for the 2012 Nick Turtle series, they did a similar thing, and as you can see, I own a very similar promo figure. You might remember I reviewed it way back in 2012 when I first got this figure at New York Toy Fair. It's in a very similar package, though with that show's logo, and inside you can see it houses a special Michelangelo figure. That Mikey figure, much like this new Raphael, had a special paint deco, including fully painted weapons, so that was something that made it stand out a little bit from the final retail releases we ended up getting. So it's pretty cool that Playmates is kind of continuing that trend with new promo figures here for Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Alright, so we've got our Raphael outside of that fancy box so we can get a better look at him. As you can see, the figure stands right at 5 inches tall. In the new series, Raphael is pretty big. He's the biggest and bulkiest of the turtles, so I'm going to be really anxious once we can get all of them here in hand to kind of line them up to see if Playmates did the same thing they did with the last series and actually make them height appropriate. Because they did a good job with that in the last run, making like Mikey the smallest and Donatello the tallest and skinniest, so I kind of hope they continue that trend, especially since they have such drastic new looks in this new animated series. So as far as the sculpting of the figure goes, I gotta say, Playmates did a pretty good job of capturing the look of this new cartoon series and bringing it to life in action figure form. And since the new series is 2D animation, and it's kind of, got that flat look that is just really wild and very different looking, it's really interesting to see how they were able to interpret that into a 3D action figure, and it definitely makes for a fun looking toy. I mean, you look at this thing, and it is instantly recognizable as a Ninja Turtle action figure. So that's definitely a plus for me. He's very bright and very colorful. In fact, when we get to comparison time a little later on, you'll notice that the colors on this figure are much brighter in tone than they were on the 2012 series figures, at least that initial run. Raphael actually had much darker skin on those, and you can see his skin is a little lightened up on this. And just overall, the reds are brighter. Everything about him just is a brighter look. He is a unique turtle. In fact, all 4 turtles in the new series are very different turtles, different species of turtles. So as such, Raphael has got kind of this spiked shell. And you can see it's very unevenly spiked. It's almost got this very cool crinkle look to it there, but it's really nice. I think the overall look is very cool. And I will say the quality of the figure seems nice and sturdy. It definitely feels on par with what we were already getting from the last series, but definitely feels like it's of the more stronger quality, something like we were seeing, especially with those initial releases back in 2012. So kudos there, and I will be curious to see if the final retail releases feel exactly like this one. But it is really nice and really sturdy, and the articulation is nice and tight on here. So let's go ahead and talk about that articulation. The head is on that same kind of ball joint we saw before on the other figures. It allows them to look left and right and slightly move up and down, but you're not really going to get a lot of that. It's mostly just a left and right movement because of the sculpts going on here. He's got those hinge-like ball joints at the shoulders, so you can see good range of motion, allowing the arms to go up, forwards, and backwards. It is worth noting that the sculpt of his front shell, you're going to rub that a little bit with the arms sometimes, so it's definitely something to be a little careful of, but doesn't really hinder the movement. You've got swivels at the elbow, as well as bends at the elbow, and swivels at the wrists. Nothing in the torso, because, usually with the big shelled figures, Playmates doesn't attempt anything in the torso there. But we do have the nice hinge-like joints at the thighs, so legs can go outwards, forwards, and backwards. Good range of motion there. You got swivels at the knee joint and bends at the knee, and it's really interesting how they sculpted the knee down to cover the knee joint. Notice he doesn't have knee pads on. He's got wraps around his thighs, but no knee pads, so that's something a little different. And the way they handled that sculpt is pretty cool, because they actually sculpted this knee down to cover that joint a little bit, but it still functions very nicely. And the ankles are really nice too, because look at that. We can swivel left and right at the ankles, and we've got the hinge joints that allow the ankles to move up and down. This is not something we typically see, especially on the Turtles, and especially in the last series, because they had those larger, bigger feet. You can see the Turtles are definitely back down to that kind of classic two-toed look like we saw on the original Turtles. So, a little bit more articulation here than we typically get, allowing you to pose this guy around pretty nicely. And like I said, he's sturdy, so he does tend to hold the poses pretty nicely. So let's get on to his weapons. So one of the other big changes is that instead of size, Raphael is now sporting these tonfas. This is something that, at least in the beginning, this is going to be his weapon. Playmates kind of alluded to this as kind of what they're going to have until they graduate to their kind of classic weapons in the series, but we're just going to have to wait and see how the new show plays out. So for this promo figure, I know for sure that these are fully painted, and the retail releases are probably going to be solid color plastic. In fact, I think they were like red, the ones we saw at Toy Fair. So these are brown with silver wraps there. You can see kind of metallic. So this is definitely one of the things that's going to make him stand out amongst the retail release. So he can holster these weapons right here on his belt, just like so. You can see they actually clip pretty nicely on there. He's got two little clips right there on the front of the belt. The belt's made of kind of that little more softer plastic, but it's not like overly gummy or anything. Does a pretty good job of holding on to those weapons. Now his hands are a bit of a different story. You'll notice that they sculpted his fingers in kind of this open position. So when you try to put the tonfas in his hands, at least in the position that I think he should be holding them, you'll notice that he doesn't really get the tightest of grips. Now you could position that middle piece right there between his two fingers there on the top, and he does hold on to them a little bit tighter. I don't know, I kind of feel like he should be holding on to them a little bit better, but it is worth noting that he can hold on to them. He doesn't have like a full gripping hand, but he can hold on to them, and I guess that is the most important. You just got to kind of find the right position to get them posed there, and that way you can get Raphael posed with his new weapons. Now, I do want to talk about some of the other differences here, like this little bandage that you see. In the last series, you might remember that he had a crack in his shell. So this is almost kind of similar, but it's like a bandage, which is kind of funny. It's very cartoonish. He's also got a little green thing here painted on his belt, which looks like it could be like his turtle comm, his communicator. Possibly that's what that is. I'm not entirely sure. I'm certain we'll find out once the series comes into play. Otherwise, he's got wraps around his hands there. I pointed out that he's got no knee pads, but otherwise, a lot of this is still very reminiscent of what you would expect from a Ninja Turtle. Of course, he's also wearing the over-the-head wrap this time, something that we saw in the most recent live-action movies, and something the Turtles even did way back in Next Mutation, and I believe we even saw some of this in the original comic books. So, something a little bit different with this version of Raphael. So since we're talking about differences, it's comparison time! I want to start by posing him alongside the two standard versions of Raphael from the 2012 series. The one on the left is that initial release, and the one on our right there is that storage shell version that was kind of the more cartoon accurate sculpt. We saw these two versions all throughout that toy line, and it's really interesting looking at these side by side with this new version, just so you can see how different they are with their colors and their sculpting. And while we're at it, how about a massive Raphael comparison time? I am just going to stand him alongside of several of the different Raphael action figures we got from all of the various lines released over the years by Playmates Toys. And it's really fun just seeing all the different versions of the Ninja Turtles in action figure form. So there you go, my friends. That is a look at the brand new Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Raphael action figure. I, of course, am fully saving my judgment for the cartoon series when I see it. I know there's been a lot of discussion about it, but as far as the toys go, I said it back at Toy Fair, I'll say it again, these designs still work very well as toys. And maybe it's not something that collectors are going to completely love, but I can totally see kids getting into these very similarly to how they got into the 2012 series. It's a really solid figure. The articulation is very nice. I like seeing this new version kind of captured in a 3D sculpt. I'm curious to see how much of the paint detail is going to stick for the final retail versions, because this promo figure, like I said, does feature more paint deco than we're typically going to see. So once that new series does hit stores, I will definitely be picking those up, and I'll be reviewing all of them as you would expect, and I'll definitely compare the retail Raph to this version here when it comes. Those are going to be hitting store shelves this fall, so stay tuned, my friends, and happy hunting. I want to give a very special thanks again to my friend Chad for allowing me to borrow his action figure that he won so we can get a good look at it here in this video. He has got an amazing blog full of retro goodness. Go check it out at horrormoviebbq.com. I'll put a link in this video description. Otherwise, guys, don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this and leave me a comment so that way I know what you think. Until next time, my friends.